Thank you, my colleagues. We are back from recess, and to the people of Guam, thank you for your patience. Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, and Housing has returned back to continue discussing Bill 292-35, which is the Budget Act. Going back to now we are going to go back to all the pages in order to discuss that were bookmarked. And if I'm correct, Joe, it was page 17, which would be the charter school. Am I correct, or is it something earlier?
That's correct. That was the first bookmark.
Okay, the first bookmark was identified by Senator Tello Taitigui, and it was to address the funding for the charter school and the increase of the per student enrollment, ma'am. And if I'm correct, that was already addressed within their budget, but that was identified to be bookmarked. Do we need to discuss anything further? Otherwise, I think that's been all resolved.
No, Mr. Chair, it's been resolved.
All right, so the bookmark for page 17 and 18 has been resolved. That is now closed. And if I'm correct, Joe, what's the next bookmark page? Because
the next bookmark, Mr. Chair, is beginning on page 19 with the University of Guam, and this was requested by Senator Shelton, Vice Chair.
Okay, Senator Shelton, you had something bookmark on. Where's Senator Shelton? I'm looking for you, ma'am. Oh, did she dropped off? Joe, is Senator Shelton?
Yes, sir. We just admitted her just a few seconds ago, but I think we're having issues on her end, so she's not on live with us right now.
And she was the only one that bookmarked that one, correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Senator, is she on now?
We're admitting her at this time. Let's see if she fully connects.
All right, if we just stand by, my colleagues, and let's finish up with Senator Shelton's bookmark. And I see the waving hand of Senator Sabina, but we'll deal with Senator Shelton right now. Ma'am, you have a bookmark on UOG. What was your concern on the bookmark for UOG, ma'am, so we can resolve your concerns?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have nothing at this time.
Okay, then there's nothing on your bookmark. Senator Sabina, you raised your hand. Ma'am, I think your bookmark has been resolved already when we moved to the EPA. Do you have anything else to bookmark on that?
We're sending it over to committee, your committee right now.
You're sending it, you have an amendment, okay. Let's see. Okay, Joe, have you received it already?
Stand by, sir. We are refreshing at this time.
And please, my colleagues, if you have amendments, please start sending them in on the bookmark so we'll be resolved of that. Because I honestly believe we're going to move pretty fast on the bookmark issues. Is there a specific page you're looking at, Senator Sabina? So that our colleagues can be looking at the page you're anticipating your amendment?
Yeah, it's page 23.
Page 23. A specific section you look, oh, there's only one section there. Okay. Joe, do you have it uploaded already?
No, sir. Senator Paris, could I just confirm, this is an amendment we're expecting to receive any moment now?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, thank you. Mr. Chair, we have not received it yet.
All right. We're gonna give it a couple more minutes and then we're gonna have to move on. Or a few more minutes. Senator Perez, if you can, send it to our senators chat so we can also be looking at it while we're waiting for it to upload.
Oops. Yes. Yeah, I will. Thank you.
All right. Joe, anything yet? Anything coming into the email?
Sir, still not received at this time.
Senator Perez, can you send it to the senators chat, please? We're still waiting for it.
Okay, I placed it in the chat. And I believe, Joe, you should be getting it shortly.
Didn't get it yet.
Yeah, it's
I
in the
didn't
Zoom
receive
chat.
the senators chat or where?
In the Zoom chat.
Mr. Chair, it's been loaded to the drive.
Okay,
As well.
folks.
Okay, so the amendment reads on line 12, page 23. UOG, so this is in response to yesterday's vote. And one of my concerns is that it was circumventing the rules and regulations of what the fund was intended for. And this is basically a accountability measure yeah, so perhaps I should read the amendment first.
Yes,
It's
please
to-
read the amendment.
It's to amend the bill to read, UOG Center for Island Sustainability shall prepare and submit an expenditure plan for said use of these funds for the Guam Green Growth Initiative to Guam EPA Board of Directors, who shall review the expenditure plan no later than 30 days upon receipt of the plan. UOG Center for Island Sustainability shall not expend funds allocated herein prior to the approval of the expenditure plan. So this kind of brings in the Guam EPA Board. These are the funds that it came from the Recycling Revolving Fund. And, I believe that the board should have, oversight of these funds. And I think it's irresponsible to appropriate funds without any sort of accountability measure in place. and away from the proper use of the funds. And this brings back that element to ensure that these funds that are being appropriated is actually undergoing some sort of oversight, a proper sense of oversight.
Okay, would anybody like to discuss this amendment? Looking for any hands out there. Senator Torres, please.
Mr. Chair, I object to this amendment. To require EPA to have oversight over the G3 initiative, I think is absurd. You know, we agreed to allocate them the money. Their programs are bound by their program is bound by their oversight and what UOG deems appropriate. So I think that, you know, there is no such thing as an umbilical cord tie into the EPA and the Green Growth Initiatives. I mean, they're already partners, but to have the expenditure of money contingent on EPA's board's approval, I think it's really absurd, and I can't see that anyone can function that way. It just defies logic to me. So I would object to this.
All right, thank you. Anybody else would like to speak to that motion, to that amendment? I think, Madam Vice Speaker, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a question for the proffer of the amendment. It said, just allow me to reread it, forgive me. The UOG Center for Island Sustainability shall prepare and submit an expenditure plan for said use of these funds for the Guam Green Growth Initiative to the GIPA Board of Directors, who shall review the expenditure plan no later than 30 days upon receipt of the plan. The UOG Center for Island Sustainability shall not expend funds allocated herein prior to the approval of the expenditure plan. Okay. What happens if GIPA doesn't approve to the plan of the Guam Green Growth?
Yeah, so then I guess that they can't get the money. It's similar with the mayor's situation, really. You know, they have to submit their plans and how they're going to spend the money on it, and they ensure that the money's properly utilized to get rid of junk cars, white goods, batteries, you know, things that the public deems as a necessity, and which is also mandated, unauthorized by law. So yes, so the short answer to your question is they would not receive the funds if it does not pass muster with the Guam board.
Okay, I was thinking about this yesterday because the RRF rules and regulations, you know, specifically put into a process to spend the money, and of course there's rules and what you would use the money for. And we were really dissecting specifics out of a previous amendment that was to give the mayors $1.3 million. So we even took out public nuisance to ensure that, you know, the money doesn't go towards taking care of, you know, dead dogs or clearing out certain debris. We wanted it specifically for the purpose that we passed into law for the RF. So I was thinking about this. Would the mayors, Mr. Chair, the money that we appropriate through the RRF fund, does that go, does DOA, is it a pass through DOA? Do they get the money immediately, or do they have to still go through?
They're in agreement of that, yeah.
I'm just talking about the fund in general, right? We're writing the appropriation for RRF. And so we gave the mayors 1.3 million. When we appropriate 1.3 million to the mayors, does the money of the fund go through the board and then go to the mayors, or does it go directly to the mayors? I'm just trying to understand the process of how we move the money.
Steve, maybe you can answer that, former BBMR director, and you can give an understanding of how it processes downtown.
Senator, like I said, our part out of the Bureau budget was basically just to set up the appropriation and release and the allotments. What happens to that down at DOA, I'm not too sure, especially when it comes to the mayors, because what I do know is that they are cut a check, I believe, to the mayor's council, and then the mayor's council takes that money and puts it into their own fund. What happens after that, I'm not privy to that. I don't know.
Okay, because I guess that would be whether I would support this amendment or not. If the process was the money would go through the GIPA board in the first place and then be pushed out to G3, then there would be no need for this amendment. But if the money is just the RRF fund cutting $500,000 to G3 and it's kind of arbitrary how they spend the money, I think that would be contradictory to what we passed into law and for the process that we push the mayors to follow. And so I think just if we can get further clarification on how the money is sent out to the mayors and how it would be cut to G3, I think that would help, at least for me, help me to know whether I would support or not support this amendment.
Madam Vice, stand by, Senator Sabina. Madam Vice, the way it's written out is that if you look on page 23, it talks about exactly what the G3 initiative is going to do and how the mayors were going to get their funds. It was agreed upon by the mayors and GIPA of their process. So they walked to an agreement, and on the G3 side, they already listed on the Budget Act exactly how they're going to use the funds. And I guess that's why the objection was posed by Senator Torres. And because it's already listed, and G3 is in coordination with GIPA, so they're going to work out whatever they need to, but the 500,000 would basically just go to GIPA to do what they're supposed, what the G3 shop is going to do, what they intend to do, and they'll be able to respond.
Yeah, so
because
sorry.
I think we would save more time if we make the chair give us the opportunity to speak. And since I'm at the floor, we can stop talking over each other. That would really help speed up the process. I've been asking this of my colleagues for the past several days now. Okay, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Madam Speaker.
Can you hear me now, sir?
Yes, I can hear you.
Sorry.
Just lost picture. Oh, there we go. Okay.
No, I gotta keep still so this doesn't fall off on me. Okay, Mr. Chair, if I may, let me just try and work this out here. If the money goes through, this would go through the Research Corporation of the university. The university has had clean audits through this corporation. And the university has to listen to procurement law. So I want to bring this thought up. If we start telling the university what they can and can't do, I'm sure that as a teacher, I think the author of the amendment can understand that the government should have to have a micromanaging role over education. And imagine one day we decide that we should not teach evolution over creation. For me, I believe that the government should not get involved with the day-to-day operations of the university. There is that check and balances. There is that follow through. There is those procurement procedures. And I think I hope I'm not being too harsh, but I just think that we should give the opportunity where it goes. This August body has the right to appropriate and give funds, and that is our role. we appropriate, and we confirm appointments. That's our two mandates. And I just think that the opportunity is there for us to look at a program to see how we can leverage the opportunities that the expertise that university has, our own community, our own college, our own people. Give them that opportunity. Because for me personally, I've been in I've just been literally trying my very best to work with the agency who's had the Beverage Container Act for more than a decade, and nothing has been done. And after so many revisions, this Container Act can be approved. And if I have a university that belongs to the island of Guam that can take this program and leverage and move on to other programs, give them a chance. We shouldn't be there to micromanage, but we can definitely find out what the audits. We can definitely ask for an audit. We can definitely ask for them to bring back the reports. We're doing it all the time. We're doing it for everything now. Reporting requirements every 6 months, every year, every quarter. So
All right.
I don't know.
All right.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Looking for any other hands in reference to the discussion of the amendment? Senator Tello. I mean, correction, I apologize. Senator Therese. I called the wrong person. Tello, Therese, TT.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, the amendment highlights that the fund and its original purpose are, and by this section of the bill going to G3, diverting from the original purpose of the fund. And so that's really the fact. Nobody's trying to micromanage the University of Guam. I think we're trying to micromanage our funds, and that's exactly our authority and what we're supposed to do if we're going to be responsible. And EPA told us yesterday that they're trying to build up this fund in order, for example, the next priority after the top two that they are addressing, the mayor's council, I mean picking up of the litter, the cars, the tires. After that is to take care of those companies that take these materials away from whoever picked it up and dispose of it somehow. Those two they're taking care of with the limited amount of money that they have. They said it takes $2 million they're going to need to implement the bottle bill. They're trying to build that money up. We've seen other agencies do this, that they can't do it with $150,000. They need $2 million, they're saying. So that's why they want the funds. And so if we're diverting it and they're not going to use it for that purpose, and I'm not saying, I don't like what GT is going to use it for, but it's a totally different thing. We required EPA to write rules and regulations before we would even give them a dime. We have, they have to write it up. We're requiring the mayors. It makes sense because we want it to be for the purposes, the things that need to get done, such as the bottle bill. It needs to get done. And it's not going to get done. They're going to tell us again next year was not able to get done. They just don't have enough funds. And I don't want that to continue to happen with those priorities that are set by law. Bottle bill, green waste, solid waste, and zero waste. Those are the next 4 priorities that EPA is working on and just trying to accumulate enough to finish. But the RCUOG was established not to receive money from the government of Guam. They were established to find money. They were a special entity created at the university to find money. That's how it was sold to the legislature at the time. They were going to be able to bypass procurement law, bypass personnel rules of, that the university is bound by, and that this would result in the university being able to find other sources of income. So that we want to manage the funds that we are giving to the university from the government of Guam, I don't feel like that's not interfering with any teacher. G3, again, is a government, by the governor's executive order, a government entity meant to get our best brains together and let them work together. Not to, I don't think, anyways, they set out the goals, and that's what they are. And so we need to, but they didn't set out the rules. Especially, they never even intended that we were going to be giving them funds. So we're going to be doing that. It's very reasonable that we want to see simply the plan. That's it. If the plan contributes to reducing or to zero waste on Guam, fantastic. I can't see why EPA would not approve it. But it should be that EPA, they can look at it. It can be consistent what their efforts are. They will know who's doing what, and so they don't have to duplicate efforts. It seems so reasonable, and it's just transparent. And it's not interfering with anyone. They're the ones asking for the money. It's very simple, I think. It's just a matter of whether you want to show what you're doing to the public or you don't, and why not? If it's a duplicate transparency, even better. I don't see any harm in that.
All right. Okay, thank you, Senator Teresa. Anyone else would like to speak? Senator Tello, please. Unmute your mic, your computer, please.
Sorry, I thought I did. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment just puts everything in perspective, and it's not controlling, other than it's a real intention of the fund itself and where it's supposed to go to. When you look at on page 23 and where it says that the money shall go to the university to fund Research Corporation of the University of Guam, the Research Corporation. How much more research do we need? I think we need funding to actually pick up the white goods. We actually need funding for the tire shredders, the glass, the issues that are at hand. We need those kind of people out there. There's been enough research. How much more do we need to find out that we have an issue with recycling? As far as I'm concerned, we've been researching this for a long time right now. Now it's time to use this money where it's needed, and that is hands on the ground. Picking up all those abandoned vehicles and white goods and people dumping. This is Research Corporation for the University of Guam. Read it. It's on line 14. Less than 10 months ago, we passed a bill for rules and regs that govern this fund. We all did. It was mentioned yesterday, several times. The same senators that voted for that. Now the bill, the amendment passed already to give $500,000 to G3, which they have already received over $1 million for their sustainability, G3 and et cetera down the line. And now it's almost $1 million. EPA has already put programs into place right now. They have already programs. Now there's going to be a setback. At least with this, EPA can now look at what Green Growth Initiative is doing and try to incorporate it together. And keep those programs that they've already got started going. Some of them don't cost $2 million. Some of them are as much as $300,000 to get started, to get people out there to start picking up white goods, giving money to the mayors, providing any incentive they need to assist. So there's no dictating anything here. It's just collaboration between Green Growth and EPA. And this is where it's going to begin. We've been trying to tell, G3 to meet up with the board, to speak with the board, because other nonprofit organizations has done the same. But I don't know why this one gets a free ride. So this is an opportunity I don't mean to sound so harsh, but it just hurts me when you get pictures coming on your phone with abandoned vehicles and refrigerators on the side of the road and right next to bus stops, children's bus stops. And you see illegal dumping going on over our aquifer, Mr. Chair, in Jigo. You've heard Rudy Mentanani speak about this, so this is just a collaboration to get them to work together. See the bigger picture. See the bigger picture. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak? Senator Lee, please, and then Senator Kelly after Senator Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll have to strenuously object to this amendment. Mr. Chair, this appropriation was included in the budget and a previous attempt to raid the G3 failed. We can't compare Guam EPA and their work with the mayors to Guam EPA and their work with G3. This is, obviously setting them up for failure. GEPA says that they support providing to the mayors, but they also were in strong objection to recycling revolving fund money going to G3. They've already told us that they do not support this money going to G3. So we're essentially setting this program up for failure. And we're also continuing a possible divisiveness between the two organizations that are both working to help our environment. It was mentioned about glass compactors and tire shredders, and that's all part of the G3 program. And I think the reason why the legislature approved G3 is because they're really working to move us beyond those types of things, beyond these beach cleanups, beyond just recycling. And that's why I'm really glad that we voted to directly appropriate recycling revolving fund monies to the mayors, because they are our front lines. They have been doing the work. And I'm so grateful that my colleagues agreed to do that. And on the same token, G3 is working on an island-wide transformation. And EPA is a partner in the G3 efforts. But I think it's important to note, Mr. Chair, that G3 was Guam EPA was very clear in their opposition to funding this program. They've been very clear. And in addition, Mr. Chair, I'll just note that EOG has environmental experts. They have board members. They have a president, an SVP, a vice provost of research and sponsored programs. They also have a legislature appointed board of regents. So they are able to comply. They have systems in place to be able to do this. And I'll just close with this, Mr. Chair. The Recycling Revolving Fund does not belong to the Guam Environmental Protection Agency. It belongs to the people of Guam. So the notion that EPA is attempting to build up funds so they can implement laws is absurd to me, especially when we've been waiting for over 10 years, as the speaker said, on beverage container programs. 10 years, Mr. Chair. And we know that millions is coming in, millions and millions of dollars have been coming into this fund over the course of years. Again, Mr. Chair, this appropriation was included in the budget. An attempt to raid it has previously failed, and this is another attempt to try to cut them off at the knees, and I just don't agree with this amendment at all. I object.
All right, thank you. Senator Kelly, you have anything to say, ma'am?
Situus Masi, Mr. Chair. Yeah, it's been good to listen to this. And I remember when we were talking about the mayors, it was a really strong point for me, very similar language, that giving them an extra $400,000, of course, we all care about the goals, but that this language was there, that they're going to have a plan and it's going to be carried out. What we've seen thus far for G3, and again, it's laudable. It's an island transformation. We all want that. But the only thing we've gotten to see, even after last week and this week, is a 2-page color flyer. There was talk about submitting a detailed budget, but we didn't get a detailed budget. We didn't get a plan. We didn't even get an outline. And so, it's for a university research group, an outline, a detailed budget, a plan, a proposal, that should not be anything that holds them up. It's what they're going to need to do anyway to move this forward in an organized fashion. So, holding them to the same standards or just being consistent in our standards with the mayors. There is a difference. I do agree. But the difference is that the mayors have done this work year after year after year after year after year after year, and they're still agreeing to a plan. Here we have a group that's doing it for the first time. All good intentions, absolutely. But the plan hasn't been developed yet. We haven't seen the plan. So there's absolutely, if it's the first time especially, we should all be looking at it and make sure it's consistent. If we're going to say that government doesn't get involved, well, okay, right now government's getting involved. It's the whole reason the appropriation came about. But then all this federal money that's coming in here, are we saying that none of it came with conditions? None of it came with expectations? None of it came with just requirements? So when we're saying that government shouldn't micromanage and government shouldn't have standards and honestly, we're asking for a plan. That government shouldn't simply ask for a plan so that it meets the requirements of EPA, which is here to look out for the good of all of us in our healthy environment and our different efforts that we're going for zero waste management and the other things. One of the things I've got to say that really stood out to me is we pointed out that G3, even though members of GIPA are there, so to say that there was strong objection, I can't say I agree with that, because I heard the vice chair of the board invite, welcome, actually almost beg G3 to talk with them, to work with them, to develop it together. And so to say that there's that strong objection, that's not quite the case. There was one other point. It really stuck out to me that Dr. Shelton said, no, he hadn't had a formal discussion. No, he didn't give a proposal. No, they haven't responded to an RFP. But we talked about this for several days, and during those several days, he didn't reach out to them. He didn't talk to them. It continued to be not talking to them. And so, at least as far as we've heard, when he came back, he didn't say anything about having reached out to them. So maybe I'm incorrect there. But I just, I do want them to get along. I do want them to have a long-term partnership. And so encouraging that and encouraging the standards, it just makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah. So
All right, thank you. Senator Shelton, remember everybody's going to get one round on this question, okay? So Senator Shelton, do you have anything to say? Nothing, Senator, anybody else of my colleagues? Other than that, Senator Moylan. And then Senator Castro after that. Senator Moylan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I support the amendment since we're now providing these funds from the RRF, and how we were able to do that is basically we overruled the EPA board's decision, and we rated the RRF funds from its original purpose. And the reality is there, as the last speaker has mentioned, there is no expenditure plan. None was provided. And, I support this amendment for the transparency, as another speaker has mentioned, because it is the taxpayers' money. Otherwise, Mr. Chairman, basically we're setting up the taxpayers' money and the RRF to fail. So I strongly support this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Senator Senator Castro. How about that, Jim? Senator Castro, you wanted to speak? You wave your hand, sir. Nope, you're not going to speak. Anybody else going to speak that have not spoken? There being none, I'll make the last comment before you close, Senator Sabina. Stand by. I'll get you to close. Number one, some of you mentioned North Aquifer. I live in Jigo. I participate in cleanups. I've reached out to the mayors in both Dededo and Jigo, and their biggest issue is funding. Funding, and support from their recycling revolving fund. So for many of you, I don't know where you live, and I'm not concerned, but I live in the North. I see the dirt, I see the trash, I see the recycling, and I deal with the people of the North. You want it clean? G3 plans as a program, and I support that program. It's in the budget. We voted on it. It's not an issue no more. So as far as I'm concerned, Senator, I won't support Senator Sabina's amendment. And Senator Sabina, you may now close and we'll move on to the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I improved the amendment. So if I can retract this amendment and send in another amendment, because I improved it as we were discussing. So I make the motion to rescind this one. Because
Withdraw, you mean? You want to withdraw your amendment?
That's correct.
All right.
I object to withdrawal.
I object.
All right. There's a lot of discussion. So we will move to vote on the
We just spent
withdrawal.
like an hour discussing this amendment, and now she wants to withdraw it. She should have withdrawn it sooner. Let's vote.
I have a.
All right.
Gosh, that's not very democratic of you guys.
Senator Tello, there's a
Voting
motion
is
to
democratic.
withdraw.
Let's vote.
And we
Okay,
will
so-
vote. There's an objection on the withdrawal. That's the Democrat way. We will now
Okay, then I
vote
would
on
like
the
to make an
withdrawal.
amendment. Then I would like to
No,
make
no,
an amendment to the amendment. please.
Senator Tello, we are going to vote on the motion to withdraw.
I'd like to make an amendment to the amendment.
Senator Tello, please be patient. We're going to go with the motion. All right, Joe, take a roll call on the withdrawal. There's an objection to withdraw the amendment, so we can vote on the amendment. Joe, let's take
Thank
a
you,
roll
Mr.
call.
Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the amendment on the motion to withdraw the amendment by Senator Paris, Chairman San Augustine.
No.
Chairman San Augustine, nay. Vice Chair Rijal.
Nay.
Vice Chair Rijal, nay. Vice Chair Shelton.
Aye.
Vice Chair Shelton, nay. Speaker Munoz-Barnes.
Aye.
Speaker Munoz-Barnes, nay. Senator Lee.
Aye.
Senator Lee, nay. Senator Teresa Lahi.
Again.
Senator
Of
Teresa
course, I
Lahi.
support withdrawing an amendment if she wants.
Senator Teresa Lahi, aye.
Again,
Senator Pito Talahi.
Nay.
Senator Pito Talahi, nay. Senator Marsh Taitano.
Again.
Senator Marsh Taitano, aye. Senator Castro.
Again.
Senator Marsh, I'm sorry, Senator Castro, aye. Senator Moylan.
Aye.
Senator Moylan, aye. Senator Munya.
Again.
Senator Munya, aye. Vice Speaker Nelson.
Again. Again.
Thank you. Vice Speaker Nelson, aye. Senator Perez.
Again.
Senator Perez, aye. Senator Torres.
Nay.
Senator Torres, nay. Senator Taitagui.
Of course, I support withdrawing the amendment. Aye.
Senator Taitagui, aye. Mr. Chair, the motion to withdraw garnered 8 ayes and 7 nays.
All right, the motion passes to withdraw. Senator Sabina, your motion to withdraw is done. Do you have a new amendment?
Yes, it was sent to the committee, I believe, and I can put it on the chat right now.
Yes, please, put it on the chat.
Is it already? Let me check. Yeah, I think I might have put it on the chat already. Where's the chat? Yeah, it's on the chat. You have to go up, scroll up a little bit. It's labeled G3-P223.2.
This is line 1, page 24 is where you have it?
Oh, that must be, no, that's incorrect. That should be this. Oh, yeah, it should be. Yeah, correct. That is correct. Yeah. So I'll read the amendment. It's line 1, page 24, to amend the bill to read, the UOG Center for Island Sustainability shall prepare and submit an expenditure plan for said use of these funds for the Guam Green Growth Initiative to the Guam EPA Board of Directors, who shall review the expenditure plan no later than 30 days upon receipt of the plan. The UOG Center for Island Sustainability shall not expend funds allocated herein prior to the approval of the expenditure plan and must meet all applicable rules and regulations. So this language actually mimics the language that Senator Regine Lee did for the mayors. And it's really just to extend, accountability of the use of these funds and the purpose of these funds. So this is what the people expect of us, is that when we take their $25 from their vehicle registration fees, it's going to this recycling revolving fund to meet very specific uses. And as you can see, our island really needs this right now in regards to cleaning up illegal dump sites, removing junk vehicles. And this is really, I see the bigger need at this point. And I think also by going through the board, like our colleagues have said before, that this is a way to balance the needs of the community. If it's going through if the recycling revolving fund is being administered by Guam EPA and their board, it helps to balance the needs of the community so they can adjust appropriately. So should we actually advance to a point where we don't see junk cars anymore? Perhaps the board can then utilize funds to address the second priority and the third priority. And as you know, the second priority is the cardboard, the plastics, and other things. And so, really, it's not about, we shouldn't be pitting these two entities together. And it should be about working together to ensure that we're responding in kind to the needs of the environment. And as you know, our island is limited as far as space goes. And the more that they can work collaboratively to divert what's going into the landfill in a safe way, because as you know, Guam EPA has to follow the environmental laws and mandates to ensure that our water is safe, our land is free from toxins. And so that regulatory element is crucial in how we're going to divert the waste, which can contain toxins. So the collaboration is really key to advancing the environmental efforts of our island. And I think this is a good way to perhaps start this collaboration, is recognizing that each brings something to the table. As an Indigenous Chamorro, I feel that the collective is what matters. This is how our society has survived for generations and for millennia, is because we recognize the importance of this collective spirit. It's not about the individual. Individuals can be great, right, at what they do, but I believe it's the collective spirit that's going to augment what an individual can provide. And it's really bringing it back to that. It's bringing it back to what has sustained our island for generations, is this belief that there's something bigger than us, and that we must reconnect with that spirit if we are going to progress to an environmentally sustainable society. And it's not about taking something away from anybody. It's really about working together to build this stronger society, to really build the foundation for this just society. You know, I feel that, you know, a lot of our people have become disenchanted with us because we don't even follow the laws that we make. And we want to repair that relationship with the public. You know, to send them the message that no matter who you are, you have an equal chance. You have an equal chance of the resources, and that what we do with, and also more importantly, that what we do with their money, we are going to ensure to the people that we are very carefully protecting this very valuable resource. And, you know, I know what it's like to be, I worked in the private sector, I worked in the public sector. And I know that in order to survive in this world, you have to be frugal. You have to, you know, make every dollar count. And by making this collaboration take place, you know, we are perpetuating that. So it's really about the values. It's returning to the values that will sustain us, and that it has sustained us individually and collectively. And so it's not about taking something away from anybody. And by no means that's what this is about. It's investing in our community. And I think this is what we need to fight for. We need to fight for this, all of us together. And we, you know, each of us have our own expertise, but together is what it's going to count. It's really what's going to bring us forward. We need to reconnect with that collective spirit that our ancestors have followed and have allowed us to survive for all these years, for centuries. So it's really about fighting for the soul of our people. This is what this is about.
All right, anybody want to speak to that new amendment? None, we will go to vote. Joe? Take the roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the amendment by Senator Paris for line 1, page 24, Chairman San Agustin?
No.
Chairman San Agustin, nay. Vice Chair Rigel?
Nay.
Chair Rigel, nay. Vice Chair Shelton?
Aye.
Vice Chair Shelton, nay. Speaker Mooney Barnes?
Aye.
Speaker Mooney Barnes, nay. Senator Lee?
Aye.
Senator Lee, nay. Senator Teresa Lahi?
Again.
Senator Teresa Lahi, aye. Senator Pito Talahi?
Aye.
Senator Pito Talahi, nay. Senator Marsh Taitano?
Again.
Senator Marsh Taitano, aye. Senator Castro?
Again.
Senator Castro, aye. Senator Moylan?
Aye.
Senator Moylan, aye. Senator Munya?
Again.
Senator Munya, aye. Vice Speaker Nelson?
Pass.
Vice Speaker Nelson, pass. Senator Paris?
Again.
Senator Paris, aye. Senator Torres?
Nay.
Senator Torres, nay. Senator Taitagui?
Again.
Senator Taitagui, aye. Vice Speaker Nelson?
Again.
Vice Speaker Nelson, aye. Mr. Chair, the amendment received 8 ayes and 7 nays.
All right, thank you, my colleagues. The motion passes. The amendment will now be engrossed into the budget bill. Is there anything else on UG's bookmark? There being none, UG is now closed. Joe, would you identify the next bookmark, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair, the next chapter is for the Office of the Magahaga, as requested by Senator Moylan.
Can we identify the page, please, so we can, page number?
Page 45.
Page 45, Senator Moylan, you had you asked to be bookmarked?
We can, I'll pass on that, Mr. Chairman. We can move forward. No longer
All
needed.
right.
Thank you, Mr.
All
Chairman.
right, there's no other, that was bookmarked by Senator Moylan. Moving along, what's the next bookmark, Joe?
Page 49 would be the Office of
49.
Veterans Affairs by requested by Senator Lee.
Senator Lee, you asked to bookmark Veterans Affairs. Do you have an amendment, ma'am?
Unfortunately, Mr. Chair, I had wanted to go back to the appropriations section, but the amendment that I proffered failed. I did want to try to direct additional resources to the Office of Veterans Affairs for some caseworkers to try to get additional veterans caseworkers to allow for additional benefits for our veterans, but that motion failed.
All right, so we're moving along. What's the next bookmark, Joe? What page?
Mr. Chair, the next bookmark is on page 71.
Page 71 is in reference to EPA.
That's
And
correct.
who bookmarked that?
That was requested by Senator Therese Terlahi.
Senator Therese Terlahi, what is your amendment, if anything?
Yeah, we could, I was not able to find any funds. Mr. Chair, I don't know if your office was able to, this is for the beach cleanups that were cut because of, that were drastically cut, over $100,000, yeah.
All right, no additional funds. Would have to get into miscellaneous administrative. That being said, that bookmark is now over. What's the next bookmark, Joe? And give us the page, Joe.
My apologies. Page 74, Department of Parks and Rec, as requested by Senator Marsh Taitano.
Senator Marsh Taitano, yes, ma'am. You had a bunch of amendments for 4 different agencies, but you were drawing it out of one source.
Yes, so my office has been working with your office all day, and so I appreciate that. So we're still waiting for the final direction from you as to whether we start with the miscellaneous or how you wanted us to proceed.
No, if I'm correct, Senator Kelly, I think you wanted to draw the funding out of CAHA and move it to Parks and Rec and move it also. So why don't you go ahead and identify the amount that you're going to draw, and so we can wrap this all up. Because separate from what you wanted to do on the FESPAC, you wanted to put it in the miscellaneous to address that funds to be put into CAHA.
Right. So we did do one amendment where we started at this point where it's going to be appropriated to and kind of reached into another section. So I want to appropriate $32,000 to DPR, but we have not completed the appropriation from the FESPAC funds. So did you want me to start talking about the
If I'm correct, if I'm correct, Senator Kelly, you're going to identify that the funds are going to come out of CAHA. Am I correct? Let's start with that, right?
Yes, that is
okay.
so.
So Senator Kelly, let's focus. Senator Kelly, you're going to move money from CAHA to Parks and Rec into the Commission and also HRRA, correct?
Yes.
And you're going to draw it out of CAHA. And then in the miscellaneous, you're gonna identify the FESPAC money to go into CAHA. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, so let's focus on that and let's just address that the way you wanted to address it. And then you wanted to move 32,000. Do you have your amendment for Parks and Rec? Or do you want to go to
Yeah, to have me
CAHA first and draw
de-appropriate
it?
from CAHA before we all agree that we are going to move the FESPAC funds to replace those for CAHA, I think is a bit cart before the horse, and it would make me nervous. I have faith that we're all on board, but I can't de-appropriate all of it before I appropriate what's missing to CAHA first.
No, on the CAHA part is when we get to miscellaneous. If you want, we can hold back on all four of your agencies again one more time. But please be ready when we're doing the simultaneous motion, okay, please?
Like I said, we've been working with your office all day, which I appreciate, but we just need the final direction of whether we start in miscellaneous. Yeah, so that we can hopefully swiftly do it all in one motion.
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Steve, please provide the guidance on how we're gonna do this.
Okay, the Senator is correct. We've been working with our staff to try to get this thing rectified. I think the only thing that we need to clarify is the $200,000 that we're trying to take out of FESPAC. I'm suggesting that all you need is authorization to use that money. You don't have to transfer that money. You don't have to de-appropriate the money. You just need to get the authorization to use it. As far as the ins and outs of going to the other three agencies, it's just a matter of moving monies between agencies. And then of course, which amounts up to 100,000, that we can do interagency, but the addition of the 200,000 is something just totally aside from that. It has nothing to do with the ins and outs from the departments. So I would suggest that it's not a matter of de-appropriating any money from FESPAC. It's just a matter of getting the authorization to use that money on the FESPAC account.
But can we de-appropriate from CAHA to give to the other three agencies that she wanted to give?
Only what she has reflected in her amendment. Yes, you can.
Okay, so why don't we go ahead and we identify that and we wrap this up with the four. De-appropriate, and when we get to miscellaneous,
we're
then
talking about is just please correct me. Sorry, Mr. Chair. Please correct me if I'm wrong, Steve. So the authorization that we've been working on is in the miscellaneous.
You are correct. Yes, Senator.
Yeah, and so that's the part, Mr. Chair. I apologize that it has to be this way, but it's in the miscellaneous, and if I de-appropriate from CAHA, and if, you know, I have faith that we're all going to support CAHA, because if we don't give them the extra $89,000, they just, the whole program stumbles for the year. Like, I just don't even know how they would.
All right, then we'll hold on to your agency
And then
until
in
we
the
move forward.
miscellaneous, we could do it as one motion from miscellaneous. I'm fine with that.
All right, okay, well, if that's what it takes. Joe, what other bookmarks do we have so we can move along?
Mr. Chair, I have one for this page.
I have one.
For what? For Parks and Rec?
Yes.
All right, and do we have it on the chat or anywhere?
Should be. Should be.
Okay, we're looking for it right now, folks. I want us to please have your amendments ready to go.
Oh.
Senator Kelly, you should be working with your people and get this all ready so that when we get to miscellaneous, we're ready to move.
Yes, I just sent them that message.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Okay,
They submitted it with the wrong page number, so they're resubmitting it with the correct page number. Sorry, it's but it's for this page on Parks and Rec.
All right, until we see yours, Senator Shelton, and then Madam Speaker, you had an amendment?
but not for this page. It was for customs and quarantine, sir.
Okay, we're
So-
not there yet. Senator Shelton, you have something for Parks and Rec, ma'am?
No, not for, or I guess we're talking about all of Senator Marsh's amendments, the money coming from FESPAC. I have a question about that for OFB.
Okay, well, we're not at that point yet, ma'am. We're still at Parks and Rec. We'll decide that when we get to miscellaneous. So that she can identify if she's even able to move the money, if the body will approve it. Give the authorization, okay? Senator Therese, has that been sent in?
Do you have it, Joe? No.
It literally just came in.
Okay. I think they sent the wrong one earlier. Is that on page 75?
Joe, what is the page on her amendment that's gonna be recognized?
I'm being told it's for page 95.
Oh, no, I think the page was wrong. That's what she mentioned.
Yeah.
What is the?
Joe, do you have one there for, it says for page 34? I mean, sorry, 134? That's the right words, but wrong page number. Yeah.
Okay, we're looking for the 134 at this time.
Okay. They could be looking at it. Yeah.
Folks, let's take a 5-minute recess. Please get your amendments in order and we'll come back in 5 minutes. Thank you. And thank you to the people of Guam for your patience. Recess 5 minutes. Please be ready. All right, thank you, my colleagues, and thank you to the people of Guam for their patience. We are back on from recess. We have an amendment proffered by Senator Therese Terlai. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this amendment is for page 75 in the Parks and Rec section, line 21. And it copies language that was in the GVB section put in there by OFB. So it's almost identical, except for GVB was granted 80% of all TAF revenue that exceeds the amount that we've projected for TAF. And this would take the other 20% and put it towards Parks and Recreation for protection, and for what we talked about earlier, the maintenance and repair of public restrooms was slashed by about 300,000 to 400,000, and the maintenance of the pool complex and the Higatnya pool. And so I just wanted to make sure that if we bring visitors here, it's just not Calacas. So I know it's a very big complaint that we've been getting, and of course I'm hoping GVB will continue to help in this regard. That GVB will put some money that it can find towards safety officers, like it has done so well. And but you know, all of those things are on the table again. So so this is again, I don't know how likely, I'm not going to promise DPR that there will be any real money here again, because when GVB estimated 400,000 visitors, their estimate was about 13 million in TAF revenues from that. But in our budget, this budget OFB estimated 18 million in TAF, Tourist Attraction Fund revenues. So we might have already been overly optimistic, so there might not be any excess. That's, you know, I don't think anybody really knows for sure. So but you know, we'll continue to be optimistic. And I just think if that money comes in, this is an excellent place for it, and they work together, and it's a perfect use of the Tourist Attraction Fund. So if I may read my amendment, Mr. Chair.
Yes, please do, so we can move along.
20% of all TAF revenue for fiscal year 2021 exceeding the amount estimated in section 2 of chapter 1 of this act. Hold on a minute. I think that's wrong. Wait, section 2. It should be oh yes, no, that's correct. I'm sorry. That's the revenues. Yes. In section 2 of chapter 1 of this shall be appropriated to the Department of Parks and Recreation for maintenance and repair of restroom facilities in public parks, island-wide, and operations in fiscal year 2021. Of course, $200,000 of this appropriation shall be allocated to the Guam Historic Resources Division for increased enforcement and surveillance of historic preservation laws of Guam. You know, many of these parks are also cultural sites, and our cultural sites are just, of course, I don't think I need to explain that to you, that they are in, they're at high risk, very high risk, Mr. Chair. So this is to help them to be preserved and to help Parks and Rec to take care of these places. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, does anyone like to speak to this amendment? Senator Sabina Paris.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so I rise in full support of this amendment, and I really appreciate the fact that some of the money is going to go to the historic preservation. I think this is a very much overlooked part of Department of Parks and Rec, and they do such vital work to protecting our cultural resources, and they're very much overwhelmed by a lot of the projects, both military projects and civilian projects. And you know, I've been trying to figure out how to get more money to them, considering that, you know, they really need a pipeline. They really need a pipeline of cultural preservation staff. There really is no backup. They just have one. Yeah, I feel there's not a lot of backup, and we just really need to address this in the future as far as how we're going to get more staffing in there, in considering successional planning. So I thank the sponsor of this amendment.
All right, thank you. Anybody else would like to speak to this amendment? I see no one else. I have a simple question. I'm the last to speak then. Senator Trees, the author of the amendment, have you spoken to your GVB counterparts to make sure that they understand that 20% of anything that exceeds whatever they bring in is going to go to Parks and Rec when they normally they've already been helping Parks and Rec on all the parks anyway. So I'm just curious to know if there's been communication with the former governor.
They have been very, when they had funds and Parks and Rec did not, yes, that's what they helped with at our urging. They helped with the maintenance of the restrooms, particularly in the very high used tourist areas, EPAL and the others. But that's not, it's like that's subject to their board's approval, Mr. Chair, and it's not, so I think we need both. We need all hands on deck in order to do this. No, I did not speak to the former governor regarding this because their request was that they get 80%, and that's what you put in the bill. So that's
correct.
That's set, yes.
All right, I just want to make sure that
yeah,
there's no miscommunication, okay? And we're not going to close, but I did state that I was the last one to speak. Senator Kelly, did you want to say something? Because I'd already, nobody waved their.
So I apologize, Mr. Chair, and I'll keep it real brief. I just wanted to thank the proffer of this amendment for thinking about the island as a whole, for just helping keep it maintained and clean for all of us. So I just really appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All right, thank you. Now we will move. Did you have a closing, Senator Therese? If not, we'll go ahead and move to
thank you. I hope they see some money. I just hope that the administration will cooperate with that. Thank you.
All right, Joe Meskin, please take the roll call. Let's vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the amendment proffered by Senator Therese Terlahi on page 75. Chairman San Agustin.
Yeah, aye.
Chairman San Agustin, aye. Vice Chair Rajel.
Aye.
Vice Chair Rajel, aye. Vice Chair Shelton.
Ungan.
Vice Chair Shelton, aye. Speaker Munoz Barnes.
Ungan.
Speaker Munoz Barnes, aye. Senator Lee.
Again.
Senator Lee, aye. Senator Therese Terlahi.
Ungan.
Senator Therese Terlahi, aye. Senator Peter Terlahi.
Again.
Senator Peter Terlahi, aye. Senator Marsh Taitano.
Again.
Senator Marsh Taitano, aye. Senator Castro.
Again.
Senator Castro, aye. Senator Moylan.
Aye.
Senator Moylan, aye. Senator Munya.
Again.
Senator Munya, aye. Vice Speaker Nelson.
Again.
Vice Speaker Nelson, aye. Senator Perez.
Again.
Senator Perez, aye. Senator Torres.
Again.
Senator Torres, aye. Senator Taitui.
Ungan.
Senator Taitui, aye. Mr. Chair, the amendment received 15 aye votes.
Thank you, my colleagues. Thank you, Senator Therese. That amendment passed. It'll be engrossed in the budget. Senator Kelly, do you need anything else in that agency? Otherwise, we will release the bookmark. Am I correct?
Well, no, remember we just had that conversation
you still
about.
want to hold on to it. Okay, so you hold on to it. Okay, let's move along. Joe, what's the next bookmark we have?
Mr. Chair, our next bookmark may be found on page 78 with the Department of Guam Customs and Quarantine Agency. Likewise, we have, it was requested by Senator Moylan, and likewise we have at his invitation and request, Mr. Chief Vince Perez from Customs and Quarantine online.
All right, before we go to Mr. Vince, Senator Moylan, do you have an amendment for this chapter, or we're just going to have a conversation?
Basic conversation, Mr. Chairman, regarding their overall budget and the shortfall requirement here.
Mr. Chair, I have an amendment.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Speaker Munya. Sergeant Arms, if you can please swear in Mr. Perez, Chief Perez.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Perez, can I have you raise your right hand, please?
Sure.
Okay, under penalties of perjury, do you affirm that any and all information that you provide, whether it be verbally, electronically, and in writing, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, Mr. Chair, he is under oath.
All right, thank you, Sergeant Arms, and welcome, Chief. There's
Thank you.
Senator Moylan, you wanted to ask some question of the chief? Please start out. You need to unmute your computer so we can hear you.
All right,
There
there
you
we
go.
go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chief, for your time here. I know you had the opportunity and we were discussing your overall budget. I think we have some great concerns regarding how you were able to make your expenses, especially regarding your rental cost. If you can explain, please explain to the body your position and what situation you folks are in now, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Senator. Thank you, senators, for hearing me today, and thank you for your diligence in attacking the budget. I know you have a very short period. I want to put this in a little bit of context because prior to this pandemic, we were looking at record-breaking numbers. We were tracking around almost 1.7 million passengers.
Mr. Chair, sorry, hold on, Vince, please. It's just difficult. I think I'm hoping I'm not the only one having difficulty hearing the chief. Vince, is there anything you can do to adjust your microphone, please?
I'm not sure. Let me see if I'm.
Just move closer, Vince.
Okay.
Okay.
People who
Is this a whole lot better?
There's some people who are not muted. Okay, if I may, Mr. Chair, there's some people who are not muted. Maybe it's coming through that one.
Okay, let me look who's not muted. Madam Speaker, please mute your phone. Go ahead and mute your phone, Madam Speaker. Thank you. Anybody else? Everybody should be good. Vince, please commence firing, sir.
Okay, so can you guys all hear me? I just wanted to say that prior to this pandemic, we were tracking around like 1.7 million passengers. And during this time also, we were trying to do a rate change. We've been trying to do it since the previous administration. But to try and make a long story short, when you're tracking around 1.7 million passengers in a year, you pretty much have your budget almost set, right? So when this pandemic came along, it kind of threw us for a loop. And now we have very low passenger counts. The passenger counts for the last few weeks on average is like anywhere between 100 some to around 200 passengers. And although the passenger counts have gone down, we still have a requirement to be at the airport and the other ports of entry because the flights are still coming in regardless of the low number of passengers. So every shift that we have, we still have a requirement for officers to be assigned there. And prior to this pandemic, we were actually trying to hire an additional 30 customs officers for this upcoming fiscal year and do it for the next several years. And when we submitted our budget, we actually went through the budget and we actually did cost cutting to try and see what we can do. So we ended up submitting a budget at $14.5 million. So if you take a look at the budget as it is submitted now, it's around 11.02 million. So that's a difference of about 3.5. And if you're looking at how much we pay in rent, the rent is around a little around three, give or take $3 million. We've actually had some cost cutting measures. We've reduced our footprint at the airport, and we're trying to cut whatever costs we have. And keep in mind that we're still short. As we sit here today, prior to the pandemic, we were operating at a little over 40% of what we need. So the concern I have really is that when you take a look at the $11.026 million that we have, and that'll take care pretty much salaries and contractual services. But the big elephant in the room is that $3 million in approximate rent that we're going to have to pay towards like the airport. But how are you going to collect $3 million in rent when you're tracking a whole lot lower? You're not tracking 1.7 million passengers annually. We're actually tracking around maybe, based on current averages, 73,000 passengers per year. So if you take 73,000 passengers per year and multiply it times $8.29, which is our passenger rate, you're going to come out to 605,000. And then the other fee that we have that supports our operations is the maritime air cargo fee, which comes out to around almost $1 million annually. So altogether, the two fees will bring in around 1.5 million. It is nowhere close enough to be able to close the gap to pay rent towards the airport. So the concern I have is how are we going to cross that gap? We're very appreciative because, as many people understand, we are revenue generating to be able to almost fully fund our operations. But because of the pandemic, the general fund has to come in and I guess connect the gap with our shortfall. So if there's anything that can be done, I'm hoping it can be, because what worries me is that we're not going to have enough towards the end, either the middle or the end of our fiscal year, to be able to pay rent, which is really the big ticket. Everything else, I think we can reasonably live within. It's not the ideal budget, but in these austere times, the biggest thing for us is to try and find out what we can do to at least take care of the rent. Thank you.
Thank you, Vince. So going back to the 3 million mark, that amount of rent is determined by who? Who charged that rate? Who determines that rate?
That is based on any of our office or operating spaces, like at the airport. So we have the biggest chunk is really the airport, and I don't have my budget documents with me. They're all at the office, but for the most part, the biggest chunk of rent is paid out to the airport authority for us to be able to work and operate. And then the other area is over at the PAC Air building, which is where we've temporarily relocated our headquarters for the past 10 years. And then, of course, we have common area fees down at the Port Authority, and we're paying for some land space for the drug detector dog unit and a warehouse. So the biggest chunk is through the airport authority.
Okay, would you have an idea? What is that large chunk from the airport authority?
I think it's around 2.5 million, if I'm not mistaken, because we've initiated we're trying to live within a reduced footprint, because we actually cut down some space at the airport. So I'm thinking it's around $2.5 million worth in rent. But what I can do is when I get back to the office on Monday, I can nail that number and then provide it to the legislature.
Okay. Vince, has Customs talked to the airport to see if there's any negotiation? Can you defer the rent, or can they just charge $1 till things get better? What's gonna happen?
I would hope that could be the case, and we are making arrangements to try and see if we can sit down, because in all honesty, if you're taking a look and you're not receiving the amount of money that you used to receive, we're unable to, if we pay all the rent with all the money that comes in, none of the money is going to go to salaries. So we have to come up with some workable solution to be able to I guess operate and be fair about it. Because if, in all fairness, you can't just take all the money that we make and throw it towards your rent, because that's not gonna fix our operations. And I understand the need for rent because it helps pay for other expenses that the airport may have. And I'm not here to argue whether or not we should or should not pay rent. I'm just hoping that if we can either place a moratorium or find out what we can do to help mitigate this issue, or tie it in somehow with the CARES Act, I'm willing to do that. But I've researched the CARES Act, and I haven't cracked that nut yet as far as what we can do. I know there's got to be a way to be able to tie in somehow. And at the same time, our guys are assisting at all these different ports of entry. We're also helping with public health. We're assisting at the quarantine facilities, but yet we're kind of like not really, nobody really seems to understand what customs does. But if you take a look at our title, we're customs and quarantine officers, yet there's no real tie-in, because Guam Customs is one of a very few customs organizations in the world that is not part of the federal government. We're part of the state local government. So we're kind of at a disadvantage because we don't tie in with federal funds. We're tied in with revenue generation, or in this particular case, general funding. So like I said, going back to, if there's a way that we can, and I would hope that we can sit down and come to some sort of workable agreement, so we can meet the $3 million. If we can remove it, perfect. If not, if there's a way to mitigate it, let's do that.
Vince,
all right, Senator Jim, anything else?
Sorry, one more. Vince, what's your time frame? What is your time frame with this current budget? If something is not done, how long can you last with this budget that we provide?
If you're taking a look at the budget and you're basing it off of what I read here, it's basically telling me that the general fund is going to give us $7.3 million, and that the other fund, the Customs, Agriculture, and Quarantine Inspection Fund Services, is looking to bring in around $4.1 million. I can tell you right now, based on, and this is just me doing rudimentary math and taking a look at our averages for the past couple months, if everything remains the same, we're not going to be collecting $4 million. So I would tend to say maybe half the year, half of the fiscal year, if not sooner. But I am not an accountant and I'm not an ASO. I just know, just looking at numbers, we're short in certain areas. And if you're short in your program area for your budget, we've already scrubbed the budget before we submitted it. We scrubbed it so much that everything was bare bones. And now with the budget, we're not receiving our entire budget, but we're thankful because we're receiving a budget, and the general fund is giving us a good portion of it. All I can tell you is that if, based on the way things stand now, if there's not a boom in the tourist, in the economy, I'm thinking around 6 months. But like I said, I'm just basing it off of what I see reading current numbers.
All right, Vince. Thank you, Chief. Is that all? We have Senator D wants to ask a question, and then we can move on. And there is an amendment by the speaker. Is that it, Jim? Did you wrap that up already?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Vince.
All right. Senator Lee, you have any questions?
Thank you, Chief Harris, for providing the information for us. Mr. Chair, I would just like to discuss the amendment that's been proffered by Speaker Tina, and to just ensure that we are discussing amendments at this point. So I want to be able to ask Chief Paris any questions about these particular amendments, but there's a time and place for oversight hearing, so we should certainly move on there.
All right, thank you. Madam Speaker, you have an amendment, ma'am?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and it's been uploaded right now. It's on page 78 to add a new item 2 to subsection W, chapter 5 to the bill to read 2. Authorization to use fines collected in the Customs Inspection Fund pursuant to section 73143 of 73 Title 5 Guam Code annotated. Any fines collected by the Guam Customs and Quarantine Agency in the enforcement of container seal violations during fiscal year 2020 and 2021 shall be appropriated in the Guam Customs and Quarantine Agency. Notwithstanding any provisions of law, the sum shall be used for the operations of the Guam Customs and Quarantine, subject to the director's approval. Funds transferred to Customs and Quarantine Agency shall not be subject to the governor's transfer authority. And Mr. Chair, if I may, this amendment, in a nutshell, there is that section in Guam law that says if a container's seal is broken, Customs can fine them. This current fiscal year, the agency has collected a little under 150,000, and the funds go into a fund that is now dormant. And the legislature then has to allow them to use it. So I know at Customs, their equipment and their fleet is about a decade old, and this provision simply gives them the much needed help they need. And it's the fruits of their labor, Mr. Chair, that I believe that they should be able to expend these funds or those funds from the previous fiscal year and any funds they receive in the upcoming fiscal year as well. And like I said, it's not much, but based on the acting director's presentation, I think anything, even if it's a little, will help in the efforts of the operations for Customs and Quarantine. I believe, especially during these trying times, that they continue to be a part of the frontliners. And as all our colleagues know, even with what is happening within both the airport and the port, the Customs is very present in those two areas. So I'm hoping that my colleagues support this effort at the request of Customs and Quarantine. And I know that the acting director, Mr. Paris, will surely answer any of my colleagues' questions.
All right, thank you, Madam Speaker. Does anyone want to discuss anything on this amendment? I don't see any hands. Senator Therese, please.
Very quickly, Speaker, is this the same fund that's in line 12 or a different fund? You said Customs Inspection Fund.
Yeah, Vince?
Yes.
It is based on the section. Vince, can you add to that? It's a different fund, but if he'd like to add,
so
it is different.
So I know that this was originally based on that section of the law 5 GCA chapter 73 was based on an original law called Public Law 2025, which basically institutes a penalty of $25,000 for any instance of a broken seal. And in that law, I believe there was an identification of a fund that it was to go into, but that fund I think was defunct. So I think they were just throwing it into the regular Customs Inspection Services Fund. But as you know, this thing needs to be, I think it should be separate and apart because it helps in terms of auditing. But as far as the fee is concerned, if anything, that thing would help us. And Madam Speaker, you're right. We collected a few penalties, but our challenge is that we wouldn't normally get to use it because it needs to get go through some sort of legislative process. And when you're looking at what we've done in order to turn in a budget that we did, we really have to scrub hard. So any little residual funding that we can get, be it through fines, penalties, fees, we would like to be able to utilize, because we really don't have much as far as funding. So I support this initiative to be able to do so.
Thank you.
Senator
I just wanted to see if it's a different fund, and I'm sure if it's different, then it's got different rules. And I have no objection to this amendment to allow them to use that money and hopefully to reenact that. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the author.
All right. Does anyone else want to speak to that? Senator Moylan, please.
Mr. Chair. Go ahead, Jim.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I want to thank the author of the amendment. I think it's very important, as we can hear from Chief Paris, a situation. Basically, I know we tried our best with this budget, but this agency is going to fail within 6 months unless we take some action. So whatever little money we could start off with, that would be great. But in reality, we're going to have to, after this budget process is over, really work out with Guam Airport Authority to assist the chief here and the customs agencies, because they're not going to make it unless we make some difference. So I really want to thank the author of the amendment, and I do support this amendment. Whatever small change we can get for now, let's help them out. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Senator Pito and then Senator Lee, please.
How much are we talking about on the customs inspection fund and the penalty fees? How much are we do we have on that at this moment?
Well, if you're looking at the customs, the penalty that Madam Speaker was proffering is the law says if a guy brings in a container and because of the integrity issue, we have to make sure that it's unopened. So we place what is called a seal, a custom seal on it. And what we do is we allow these containers to go to the place of inspection, but they are not to open the container until the customs officer gets there to be able to make sure that everything is, the integrity of the seal is intact. That way the integrity of the whole process is intact. And there are times when consignees or importers will break the seal. And when they break the seal, we can no longer determine whether or not the integrity of the contents were disturbed. And there are times when we do investigations and we find out that the seal was broken. And in that instance, there's a penalty of $25,000 that's assessed. If you can imagine, if you were a drug dealer and you brought in containers, and $25,000 really is nothing. But to the average importer, $25,000 is a lot. So what I'm trying to say is that for the last maybe 12 months, we brought in, through the customs officer's diligence, $100-some thousand that is kind of in limbo because we can't use it. We collected it, we made the deposit into the general fund, but we can't make use of that. As far as the other fee that you're talking about, if on average we're collecting, I think it's like 1.7 million passengers per annum. So annually 1.7 times $8.29 will give you whatever that amount is. But right now we're not tracking. We're tracking like 200 passengers per day times 365 days a year times $8.29. That doesn't really give you much. That gives you around $605,000 for passenger inspections. So when you're looking at like $11 to $12 million collected annually, dropping down to $605,000, That's what we're looking at collecting if everything remains the same and there's no dynamic changes towards the economy nor the visitor arrivals. So that's the difference between the two fees.
All right, Senator Pito, we can move to Senator Lee.
Mr. Chair, that, we need to follow up on what the speaker was talking about, because she had mentioned something about like 100,000, but actually, if we really sit down and really on the 3.6 million that custom really needs, I think there's no way that we can get that 3.6 million anywhere other than to maybe compromise with the airport and prolong the payment for the rentals up at the airport. That's the only way right now, and I'm willing to sit down with the airport and also with custom to compromise on something, because we cannot with 3.6 million other than to give the legislature the authority for them to use that what the speaker was talking about, and that's only 100,000 that we're talking about.
All right. Okay, Peter, you're done. Okay, Senator Lee, ma'am, you have something, so we can move along.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question was answered previously. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I don't see any other hands. Senator Torres, please.
Yeah, just a very quick question. Why did you say that it was deposited into the general fund if in fact this fund exists right now to collect it? Because from what I'm observing, there was a public law that repealed that customs inspection fund, and that's why all funds ended up being reverted to the general fund. So, I mean, does the fund even exist? So I'm confused. You say
so that's where. Okay, so that's where there is some confusion, because when we were reading the initial law, we were under the impression that there was a fund specifically identified, but I think you are correct in that I think it was when it got incorporated into the 5 GCA series, there might have been a change. So although we put the money in, I'm using the term general fund loosely or very generally, because I'm not sure where that fund went or where what specific funding account number it went to. But what I'm hopeful for is that if there's anything that we can get as far as penalties, this would be a good start. But we want to make sure that the customs agency is able to have more authority, if you will, to be able to utilize the funding when it needs to and as it sees fit to. I mean, if you take a look at our history, we've been, for the past 15 years, we've always been trying to live within what our fees would generate, but at the same time, whenever employees leave the agency, we didn't really do a good job as far as like ensuring that when 15 officers leave, that we hire 15. What we were doing was taking their salaries and throwing it to other areas within the budget that needed to be covered.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what the fund identification is, but I would like to see that we would be able to utilize any fee that we see fit, and this is one actual easier way to be able to get this funding. Right now, I think it's 150,000 that we've collected and submitted, but to this date we can't make any use of it.
Okay, so but to my point, Mr. Perez, that's exactly what I'm pointing out. The reason it went to the general fund is perhaps because that fund was already repealed, And so if you're looking at a scheme to collect the funds in a special fund and transfer directly to customs, and that I believe, and my recommendation would be maybe that's a separate type of legislation than needed. Because if it were going into a fund, there would have been a fund, but it's right now going into general fund, which suggested there is no fund, and it was repealed by Public Law 23-128. So I mean, it's just a technicality. So I think we're. Thank you.
I see. I agree.
Mr. Chair,
All
Mr.
right.
Chair, a point of information.
Okay, go ahead.
As our policy team was looking into the matter, we do know that it was noted that the fund is there. There is a bookmark for that, but it is not, cannot be utilized by Customs and Quarantine. So the funds are still there, and they said it was up to 150,000, but I think if I'm not mistaken, when we checked the last count, it was at 135,000.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Looking for any other hands? Well, everybody got one round. Okay, so we're gonna move along. I don't see anybody else. We're on the amendment. Okay. We will move to vote on the amendment at this point. Okay. Madam Vice, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the amendment, I understand that Guam International Airport Authority gave vendors a break on their rental agreements. They had some kind of agreement with the feds. So I don't know, did Customs and Quarantine, were they not afforded that as well?
No, ma'am, we weren't. I know I heard that there was some sort of break offered, but I don't know with Customs what happened. All I know is that there was nothing put out that we were going to be either included. There might have been some sort of technical issue with the CARES Act funding, but no, we're still required to pay every month.
Okay, and we've been trying to find a way for Customs and Quarantine not have to pay any type of rent or for them to have to relocate if GIAA continues to, lease out space to them at these exuberant costs. And so when we were advocating for this, the director at the time was telling us to hold fast because they were working out an agreement to decrease the rent exponentially. Did all of those phases come into play? Because I knew it was, I remember it was a phased process, but I can't recall the specifics of the process.
From what I know is that we entered into a new lease agreement with the airport authority. And if you guys are familiar with the customs area, downstairs, there's an area called the walk and talk. If your back is towards the baggage belts and you're looking towards the exit, it would be that big open area on the left side of the customs inspection hall that is normally reserved for military arrivals, homecomings. So that part we gave up. So we did reduce our footprint, but it's still, the way I see it is that whatever agreement we entered into many, many years ago, in order to be able to, I guess, to participate in this passenger inspection fee, I'm thinking we may want to revisit because it's almost like why people say, why are you paying rent to work in your own house? And but there are certain other mitigating factors too. So this is something that we should explore.
Okay, so my question was, did all of the phases get implemented?
As far as I know that we have as far as phases, I'm aware of a reduction in rent only for that one portion. Every other portion, to include the customs inspection cubicles and the secondary counters and the admin support staff areas, we're still paying for. So yeah, I don't know if that's a multi-phase process, but I know that we did take care of reducing our footprint in at least one area.
Okay, and what is the cost now that you've reduced that footprint?
I don't have that number available, but what I can do is I'm writing myself a note and then I can submit that to you once I get it.
What was the cost before?
I think all told, we were paying over I'm tempted to say around 3.2 million. And I'm almost tempted to say we may have reduced by 80,000 at least, but I don't want to officially put that out there. So what I can do is I will get you the number as soon as I'm able to get to work, and I'm writing myself a note to be able to.
Yeah,
do
I think
so.
there were conflicting numbers because I was hearing 2.5 million that Customs and Quarantine was paying for rent, and so.
I can get all those
And then there was
numbers.
supposed to be some kind of a significant savings. $80,000 is not significant savings when you implemented those phase processes, and that's the only reason why we didn't move forward. Arguing or not arguing, but advocating for the space of customs with Guam International Airport and the board. All right, thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me see, I'm looking if anybody else waving, otherwise I'm gonna speak real quick. It's in reference to the amendment, and then also just ask a few questions of the chief, because I'm only concerned that number one, chief, you have a mandate to inspect people coming in, am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, being that you have a mandate, do you have a mandate that you must rent for space when you're required? The people can't enter Guam unless they go to customs?
I am not aware of any mandate, but I know that.
The reason why, you know what I'm trying to lead to, Chief, is that number one, you've got space. You need to clear people to come into Guam. It's no different as when you're working with the port. If I'm correct, I think the port is giving you pretty much a rent-free space down at the port. That's my understanding, unless it's wrong, the information I got.
Correct.
You got that because you're servicing the port. And I'm hoping that the airport, they're listening probably, is that they need to work something with you, because we met before, Vince, and I've been trying to figure out a way how to get you out of the airport where you can get a cheaper rent, and all you do is walk up to the airport, clear the folks coming in, and you move out, and you don't have to take up any space, because it's a requirement that you must be there to clear people coming in, but there's no requirement for you to be there and sitting in that area, and that's what my concern is. But moving to the amendment, I'm in support of the amendment, and we'll see how we can do to help you folks. All right?
Thank you.
All right, Chief. That being said, everybody's spoken. Joe, let's move to the vote. Madam Speaker, do you need a close on that? I think we spoke enough on that.
No, sir. Please call for the vote.
Yes. Joe, let's call for the vote. Do the roll call, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the amendment proffered by Speaker Munya Barnes for page 78, Chairman Augustin.
Aye.
Chairman Augustin, aye. Vice Chair Vigel.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vigel, aye. Vice Chair Shelton.
Okay.
Vice Chair Shelton, aye. Speaker Munya Barnes.
Again.
Speaker Munya Barnes, aye. Senator Lee.
Again.
Senator Lee, aye. Senator Twista Lahi.
Again.
Senator Twista Lahi, aye. Senator Pito Talahi.
Again, por favor.
Senator Pito Talahi, aye. Senator Marsh Taitano.
Okay.
Senator Marsh Taitano, aye. Senator Castro.
Again.
Senator Castro, aye. Senator Moylan.
Aye.
Senator Moylan, aye. Senator Munya.
Again.
Senator Munya, aye. Vice Speaker Nelson.
Again.
Vice Speaker Nelson, aye. Senator Perez.
Again.
Senator Perez, aye. Senator Torres.
Aye.
Senator Torres, aye. Senator Taitagui.
Again.
Senator Taitagui, aye. Mr. Chair, the amendment received 15 aye votes.
All right, thank you, Mr. Messian. what is the next bookmark?
Mr. Chair, the next bookmark comes from the Committee on, the Guam Council on the Arts and Humanities Agency, as requested by Senator Marsh Taituro.
So as we did with a DPR, I asked that the bookmark remain so that we can do it all in one motion as we've been talking about.
Okay, thanks. All right, also, sorry, I forgot to go ahead and dismiss Mr. Perez. Thank you very much for participating with us today. And so, Senator Kelly Marsh Taituro, you said you'd like to go back to this, right?
Yes, to please continue the bookmark so that it can be handled all in one go.
Okay, Mr. Messian, what is the next bookmark, sir? There's the chair's back.
Joe, what's the next bookmark? And we can move along.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The next bookmark is for the Chamorro Land Trust Commission, as requested by Senator Charahi.
Thank you. I checked with the director and I think we're good here, so thank you.
All right, and what page was that, Joe, so we can call off the page other than just the agency, so everybody
Page
can-
84.
Page
Page 84, okay, thank you. Joe, what's the next one?
The next bookmark, Mr. Chair, is for the Office of the Attorney General, also requested by Senator Therese Charahi.
Page number,
Page
Joe?
95, page
Yes.
95.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I could beg your indulgence, the AG's information is not yet submitted, so if I could just get a little bit more time on that. If it it's supposed to come in soon. They said this morning, so.
All right, we'll treat that agency the same we're treating Senator Kelly, okay? Joe, what's the next one?
The next bookmark, sir, is for the legislative branch on page 94.
We skipped the.
That was before the AG, yeah.
That's before the AG. Senator Lee, do you have anything you want to discuss with the legislature? There's anyone? Senator Shelton, please? Nothing? Yes, Senator Shelton.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm trying to look if it's here in the drive already, but I worked with OFB on an amendment, a technical amendment for the legislative branch. If OFB can send it to the chat.
Joe, you have that? Have you sent it out?
Yes, my apologies. We're gonna know that momentarily.
Sorry, what page are you on, Senator Shelton?
94.
Okay.
Page 94. Legislative branch.
Senator Shelton, this is an amendment to Section 3, correct?
Section 1. Maybe OFB can help us to clarify. The amendment is to, I know no one sees it yet, but the amendment is to correct the total appropriation to the legislative branch to include the Guam Youth Congress amount. And Steve, maybe if you can just speak to this. Usually the Guam Youth Congress amount is an allocation out of the total amount of the legislature's budget. Steve?
Okay, it's not separate then, huh? Steve?
Yes, Senator Amanda is correct. Everything is correct. What she said is just the way we accounted for it. So all we're going to do is just make the proper adjustment. It doesn't really change the bottom line per se.
Okay, so we're going to move 3 into 1, in other words, because we just accounted for it. The legislature will account for it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The language at the bottom for Youth Congress is allocated and not appropriated. So it's just to reflect that that number is included in the total appropriation of our branch. This is not to give us an increase, it's just to reflect the correct number.
All right, so, and that's your amendment?
Yes, I want to make sure our Youth Congress representatives who continue to, meet virtually and have their sessions are also being compensated, and we're paying their administrative fees. This little amount supplies them for the year. So thank you very much.
All right, Joe, where's the amendment?
And Mr. Chairman, yeah, if I also may add, included in that amount will be $4 more because of rounding off. Okay, so we're just going to include $4 more just for rounding purposes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Joe, you got the amendment? We're just waiting for that.
Yes, sir. We're having some technical difficulties on our end, so if you could just give us a minute, we'd appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Did anybody want to speak to that? I mean, to this amendment? All they're going to do is merge it? Just to clarify that. Senator Tello.
Mr. Chair, are we talking about the amendment now, or we can just ask questions about this page?
We're going to be talking about the amendment.
But it's not up yet, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So is it okay to ask a couple questions then? Because the one, if it's okay. We've been making amendments to every agency, department, and to allow any lapses to carry over into the next year. So I'm not sure if this would pertain to the same thing for the legislative branch. We've done it for the executive branch as well as the judicial branch as well. Will this be, will be given the same authority?
I would hope so.
Okay. Offer an amendment for that?
If somebody can introduce that amendment, that would work.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I guess, okay. So nobody has. I'm not sure if anybody's proffered an amendment yet, but I don't want to step on anyone's toes if they haven't.
All right, well, as soon as, I think we have the amendment of Senator Shelton, and then we'll address that and we'll ask that. I don't think so, but if you have one, please throw it on, and then let's address this and move on.
And the other issue, Mr. Chair, I'd like to bring up is the lump sum at the end of the year. As you know, the term ends this year in January, and there's usually a lump sum that's given not to the senators, but given to staff at the end of the year. So I'll like to ask Steve if there's to speak on that when he has a minute, but we'll go ahead and start with Amanda's, and then, but I'd like to bring that up as well.
Yes, and when we come up to the lump sum, we'll have Steve speak to that, but that's when we come up to that. Senator Amanda, I think we see your amendment. If we can speak, if you can please, I guess, repeat what you said earlier.
Okay, well, sure. This is an amendment, a technical amendment to include the total from Section 3 into our overall appropriation. As you can read in Section 3, the Youth Congress budget of $14,258 is allocated to the Guam Youth Congress. And so this number was just not added to line 4 for our total overall appropriation. And so this is a technical correction to include that $14,000 in our appropriation.
All right, is there any need for discussion on that? Technical correction, that's all it is? There being none, let's move the vote on that amendment, please. Joe, take the roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the amendment as proffered by Senator Shelton, Chairman San Agustin.
Aye.
Chairman San Agustin, aye. Vice Chair Rigel.
Aye.
Vice Chair Rigel, aye. Vice Chair Shelton.
Again.
Vice Chair Shelton, aye. Speaker Munoz-Barnes.
Again.
Speaker Munoz-Barnes, aye. Senator Lee. Senator Lee, aye. Senator Teresa Lahi.
Again.
Senator Teresa Talahi, aye. Senator Pito Talahi.
Again.
Senator Pito Talahi, aye. Senator March Taitunu.
Again.
Senator March Taitunu, aye. Senator Castro.
Again.
Senator Castro, aye. Senator Moynihan.
Aye.
Senator Moynihan, aye. Senator Munya.
Again.
Senator Munya, aye. Vice Speaker Nelson.
Again.
Vice Speaker Nelson, aye. Senator Perez.
Again.
Senator Perez, aye. Senator Torres.
Yes.
Senator Torres, aye. Senator Taitui.
Again.
Senator Taitui, aye. Mr. Chair, the amendment received 15 aye votes.
Thank you, my colleagues. We will move on. I know Senator Tello is drafting, unless somebody else, I'm trying to see if there's anybody that drafted the continuing appropriation to the legislature. Other than that, in reference to the lump sum, Steve, could you speak on that issue on the lump sum, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, in preparing the budget for the legislature, we just took into account the total appropriation, the legislature to total FY20 appropriation, did the appropriate cuts on it. And as far as the lump sum, it was difficult to include that amount into the budget ceiling of 2020 without going above the current 2020 appropriation level. So what I'm saying in essence is that that increase of what I've been told would have amounted to almost, I would say, I've heard anywhere from 450 to 500,000, would have put the legislature's budget up over the FY 2020 appropriation level. And that, I believe, was a decision that we had to make to say that we were trying to accommodate that particular requirement within the 2021 budget level.
All right. Thank you.
Or utilize any unexpended balance of FY 2020 appropriation for the Guam legislature.
Okay. Senator Lee, and I think you have another issue. We want to be able to let our colleagues know about the refinancing. Maybe you want to at least comment on that one, that possible savings, and it could help us in what we need to do.
Yes, Mr. Chair, there was a resolution that was introduced by the Committee on Rules several days ago. We had a meeting and discussed it, weeks ago. And our CFO came back to us with a couple of different figures and speaking with the bank. And so we were able to pass that resolution. And we're still in discussions with the bank to see what the rate would be. And then we can report back to the body regarding any potential savings. So, we're hopeful about that, but the disclosure from Mr. Guerrero is a grave one. I think we're gonna really have to look at our internal office budgets and committee budgets to figure out how we're going to float that payment.
All right. Thank you. Now I know Senator Tello, you asked the question about the continuing appropriation. If you have that amendment, that would work.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I'm hoping that Joe has it right now, because I just wanted to make sure that it was a continued appropriation, not only from the 2020, but also prior years, if there's anything like FY19. But yeah, so I just put prior years to that, and Joe should have it any minute. I'm sorry I did this last minute. I thought somebody might have already had that amendment on them, but if we can, Joe, have you received it from Jason yet? And Mr. Chair, you know what? I just want to take this time to thank all our staffs who are working behind the scenes right now for all of us to get these amendments out right away and make any connections, and taking the time away from their weekend to be with us today to work on the budget. So I really want to do a shout out and say thank you to all the staff that's behind the scenes.
All right. Thank you, Senator Tello. Joe, did you get that amendment already so we can close the loop on this one and then we can move on? I'm hoping we'll
Not just
get
yet,
back to
Mr. Chair.
103.
Mr. Chair, I just sent it on our Senate chat, if you guys want to look at it.
Yes, please.
It's on our Senate chat. So if you want to continue, if you want me to continue for the sake of time, I'll be happy to read it from there.
Yes, if my colleagues have no problem with that one, I have no problem with that. It's what we're going to see anyway.
Would you like me to continue, Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. My colleagues, it's very simple. It allows a carryover. We've been carrying over agencies, the judicial branch, the executive branch, and anything else that was able to generate revenue. And because of COVID, we're finding out that a lot of them have excess revenue, or not excess revenue, they have funding that they've never been able to spend on because of it. So I'm hoping too that we've found savings in 2020, especially when it comes to power bill, because we haven't been in the legislature as much, and on any supplies that we can work with. So it's on line 13, page 94. It adds a new section 4 to read. Continuing appropriations, notwithstanding any other provisions of law, the unexpended balance of funds appropriated to the Guam legislature for fiscal year 2020 and prior shall not lapse and shall continue to be available until fully expended. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all.
Thank you, Senator Tello. I don't see any hands for discussion. It's just the same thing we've been going through for many of the agencies. There being none, I don't see any hands. Senator, I don't think you would need a closing on that one. It's all right. Joe, let's call the roll call. Let's go to vote.
Thank you. On the amendment proffered by Senator Tello Taitukwi, Chairman San Agustin.
Aye.
Chairman San Agustin, aye. Vice Chair Rijal.
Aye.
Vice Chair Rijal, aye. Vice Chair Shelton.
Again.
Vice Chair Shelton, aye. Speaker Munoz Barnes.
Aye.
Speaker Munoz Barnes, aye. Senator Lee.
Again.
Senator Lee, aye. Senator Teresa Lahi.
Again.
Senator Teresa Lahi, aye. Senator Pito Talahi.
Again.
Senator Pito Talahi, aye. Senator Marsh Taitano.
Again.
Senator Marsh Taitano, aye. Senator Castro.
Again.
Senator Castro, aye. Senator Moylan.
Aye.
Senator Moylan, aye. Senator Munoz.
Again.
Senator Munoz, aye. Vice Speaker Nelson.
Again.
Vice Speaker Nelson, aye. Senator Perez.
Again.
Senator Perez, aye. Senator Torres.
Yeah.
Senator Torres, aye. Senator Taitukwi.
Again.
Senator Taitukwi, aye. Mr. Chair, the amendment received 15 aye votes.
All right. Thank you, my colleagues. The amendment will be engrossed into the bill. What is the next page that we need that was bookmarked? And because I know we still need to go back to the Attorney General's office for the technical amendment that will be as Senator Teresa.
Yeah, we can do that one right now if you want.
Okay, but what was next, Joe, first? Just so that we'll know how far away is it. Or is it next? Oh, it's next anyway. Attorney General, yes. All right, I apologize. Please, Senator Teresa, so we can make that technical correction.
Yeah, I asked to bookmark it for a different purpose, but this amendment is the technical one. And so it's on page 95, under section 3, the cost sharing initiative for the CJIS. What happened was they said that, well, the original language says that it's going to be paid out of the OAG's share. I mean, out of the OAG's budget, but it's actually being appropriated from the general fund to the judiciary for the AG share. So this was a OFB language, and that's the amendment. Do I need to read it all out?
If anything, just the correction that we need to put.
Okay, so we're gonna remove the words OAG shall pay the Unified Judiciary the sum of $81,603 from the general fund appropriation in section 2 for the, and we're gonna place that with the sum of $81,603 is appropriated from the general fund to OAG to pay the Unified Judiciary for. So they're giving them extra general fund money to pay that.
All right, do we need any discussion on that, senators? That's a technical correction update. There being none, Senators, you want to go ahead and close on that one, and we can just go ahead and vote on it?
Yeah, no closing necessary, Mr. Chair.
All right, Joe, let's do the roll call. Let's go to vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the amendment by Senator Teresa Lahi, Chairman San Agustin.
Aye.
Chairman San Agustin, aye. Vice Chair Rajel.
Aye.
Vice Chair Rajel, aye. Vice Chair Shelton.
Again.
Vice Chair Shelton, aye. Speaker Munya Barnes.
Again.
Speaker Munya Barnes, aye. Senator Lee.
Again.
Senator Lee, aye. Senator Teresa Lahi.
Again.
Senator Teresa Lahi, aye. Senator Pito Tulahi.
Again.
Senator Pito Tulahi, aye. Senator Marsh Taitano.
Again.
Senator Marsh Taitano, aye. Senator Castro.
Again.
Senator Castro, aye. Senator Moylan.
Aye.
Senator Moylan, aye. Senator Munya.
Again.
Senator Munya, aye. Vice Speaker Nelson.
Again.
Vice Speaker Nelson, aye. Senator Perez.
Again.
Senator Perez, aye. Senator Torres.
Again.
Senator Torres, aye. Senator Taitui.
Again.
Senator Taitui, aye. Mr. Chair, the amendment received 15 aye votes.
All right, thank you, my colleagues. That motion passed. I've been engrossed into the budget bill. Senator Therese, you said you may have another amendment on the Attorney General's office, ma'am?
Yeah, if we could bookmark that, Mr. Chair. Sorry. It's
Okay, we bookmarked that. What was the next bookmark we have, Joe?
At this time, our next bookmark is on page 93, the Ethics Commission.
The Ethics Commission? We have a bookmark on the ethics? Okay, who bookmarked that?
I did.
Oh,
Right.
okay, Senator Therese.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
didn't,
page
Mr. Chair,
93.
because I was concerned that we are funding them as you know, with a director, with a legal counsel, and all of that. And I'm, you know, this is a commission. They're supposed to meet to just determine, yeah, ethics violations. And I'm hoping that the AG's office is going to be able to help them. And, you know, that this money could be, some of this money, at least, you know, I don't mind funding the ASO, but I don't have an amendment on this section right now, Mr. Chair. So the OFB claims that they've funded it only at half of the request that was originated, but I'll just leave that for the governor. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. What was the other bookmark, Joe, so we can move along? I think there should be nothing now.
We still have the Bureau of Women's Affairs.
Oh, yeah.
We do? Okay. And that was the issue of just to pay the difference because she wasn't getting paid with her benefits. Am I correct?
No, I had bookmarked that, Mr. Chair, also because, yeah, I was thinking about just, you know, letting them operate with the same appropriation and finding the remainder of the money the same place they found it before. But I'm also not going to make that motion right now, but I hope that they will be able to allocate these funds properly up at the governor's office. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. What was the other one? The other bookmark? Do I see somebody?
Chair, if I may, this is the.
Oh, there you
speaker.
go. Madam Speaker, go ahead.
I thought I bookmarked the Medical Referral Assistance Office, but I just want you to know that I did get a note from the OPA's office last night that they are in the medical referral contract is in settlement discussions, awaiting signature. So I just want to make sure I let the body know that.
All right.
And
Okay.
but if you found any update, you're
Do we know the amount, Speaker?
no, I don't. I was hoping that, but because they're in discussions, I guess I wasn't. They weren't privy to give me that answer.
Yeah, that's in privacy when they're in discussions because they have to decide.
So I
All
just
right.
wanted.
Thank you for the update, Madam Speaker. Moving along, Joe, what else was identified?
The last bookmark that I have listed here is for OTEC.
What is OTEC?
Office of Technology.
OTEC. What page? Give us a page, Joe.
90.
We're going backwards, Joe. Page 90 now, okay. Okay, and who bookmarked that?
I have Senator Lee as having requested that.
Okay, Senator Lee, do you have anything, an amendment for that chapter for OTEC?
Unfortunately, Mr. Chair, the funding source that we were hoping to try to pull did not come through. So there is quite a large decrease in that department. And I just want to put on the record that I think it's very disappointing, especially during this pandemic when all of our agencies are really relying on OTEC to give them the technical expertise that they need to get all of our stuff online. It's going to be a real challenge for them. So I just want to thank Frank Lujan, who's been great over there, and his team, and really applaud them for their efforts and really trying to do much, much more with less. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Joe, what the other amendment bookmarks we have? I think that should wrap it up, not unless we go back any further.
That's correct, sir. Other than the bookmarks that were asked to maintain bookmarks, mainly by Senator Marsh Titano.
Right, but so when we get to miscellaneous, then we'll be able to address
correct.
it.
All the other bookmarks have been relieved.
Okay, Senator Sabina, you raised your hand, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is in regards to revenue and taxation. I just hope I can proffer an amendment regarding that. It's kind of in line with what a lot of our colleagues are doing in regards to lapses.
What page are you at? What page are you at, ma'am, so we can know exactly, other than just the name of the agency
Page
that I used to work for?
Page 57, and I put it on the Zoom chat, the amendment.
Okay.
So did everybody see it? It's in the drive, but it's also on the Zoom.
Okay, it should be on, it's on the chat if I'm correct. Yes, I think it is. SFB, that's you, right?
Okay, so if I can read it, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so it's line 3, page 57. To add a new H to bill to read, continuing appropriation authorization. Notwithstanding any other provision of law, the unexpended balance of funds appropriated to the Department of Revenue and Taxation for fiscal year 2020 and prior shall not lapse, and shall continue to be available until fully expended. The unexpended balance from prior appropriations shall be utilized for technological upgrades and efforts to adapt automation by the Department of Revenue and Taxation. So in speaking to some of the employees of Department of Revenue and Taxation, there is a need for this, and considering that there's been a backlog of processing of BPT filings, up to 13 months, and this would actually very well complement some of the initiatives that my colleagues have sponsored, including one in this particular bill where it requires the electronic filing of BPTs. I think that would this would help to support that. in addition to the staffing themselves, they are in need of equipment. And in the public hearing for that particular bill, the question was asked whether CARES money has been can be utilized for that, and the answer was not very committal, and it's very unclear as to how this CARES money. Obviously the CARES money, it makes sense to use the CARES money for these type of things, but we don't have a clear answer or a commitment for that matter to ensure that it can go towards these things. And I think it's not just about buying computers, really. It's about really modernizing Department of Revenue and Taxation. They have so many mandates before them, and I think it's a miracle in some cases how they're able to process so much in the time that they have, and considering that they have timelines that they have to meet when it comes to income tax refunds. So I really think that whatever lapse is in there, I don't know how much, it may be minimal, but if we can invest this money to bring more efficiency into our government, and I think it would pay for itself. Considering that it can help close the gaps in collections, and I think it's also important to provide our workers the proper tools to advance in this area. So I think really it's a win-win situation for the agency, and I believe for the people at large. So I ask for the support of my colleagues in this. And I just also would like, if I can add this. So it does talk about technological upgrades. It talks about automation and efforts to adapt automation. So we're not specifically speaking of hardware, but it's also the training that comes with it. So so it's about tooling our employees, not with materials, but also the expertise.
Understood. Thank you, Senator Sabina. All right, we have two hands waving, Senator Lee and Senator Shelton, but I'd like to remind our colleagues, it wasn't the CARES budget, the $6 million, and I've been reaching out to Ms. Daphne. $6 million is supposed to upgrade all their technology. So it is only to help them anyway in other areas that if whatever money's there. Senator Lee, please.
Mr. Chair, I'm not in objection to this amendment at all. I think with the information that you just provided, they might have a little bit more support in that area. I wouldn't be opposed to giving the director a little bit more flexibility to determine exactly what parts of her department need the most assistance. But at this point, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to raise a point of order. I'm not sure if this section was bookmarked. And so are we changing our rules now where we can just go back to any part of the bill and make amendments? If that's the case, then we should just agree as a group that notwithstanding our rules, we're going to move to go back, which would be fine. But I just, we can't just be throwing out amendments. There wasn't a bookmark on this section. So I just want to be able to follow your rules, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right. And I agree with you. Senator Sabina. Yes. No.
Stand corrected.
No, you're correct. And I apologize. I apologize to my colleagues and to everybody that's viewing. We did agree. If it's bookmarked, we go back to it. And I thought it might have been bookmarked. And Senator Sabina, I have no problem supporting it, but we have to all come to an agreement. We only have so much time left, folks. Okay, we need to move on. So Senator Sabina, you have any comments? Otherwise, we have to stay with the program. Yes, ma'am.
Chair, sorry. Yeah, I do apologize to my colleagues for not bookmarking it, considering I didn't have the amendment ready. And I do think there's still opportunities. I mean, this is a really quick one. It's I don't see any as I heard from my colleague, there's no objections to it. So I asked my colleagues to support this amendment. Considering it hasn't gone out of committee yet. So I feel that this is the opportunity to make the changes. And I think it's important too, because as they're engrossing the bill, I just wanted to address this up front rather than waiting for the latter part of the bill. So it gives the clerks time to really kind of engross it, I'm trying to work collaboratively in this effect. So I appreciate
That was,
your
yeah.
consideration.
All right, and thank you for that statement, but we have 55 more pages to go, ma'am. So, okay, finishing it off and then coming back wouldn't have been a problem. Okay, but my colleagues, if you wanted, we can continue on with revenue tax. I have no problem with revenue tax. I used to work there. I'm a very strong supporter of revenue tax. I know what goes on in there.
No objection.
Okay, but the key here is not the objection, is that it was so noted that that was what we all agreed to. You didn't have to have your amendment in place already. Just bookmarking it is holding it for a possible amendment, okay? So Senator Sabina, that note, just so we can stay on track, we all heard your amendment. Let's just wrap this up and then we'll come back to revenue and tax, okay? I will make that commitment that we'll come back at the end of this 55 more pages to go, okay? And if that's okay with you, I would really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so moving along, what is the next bookmark we have? And then we will come back. I won't forget revenue and tax. I was there for over, well, almost 2 decades. Joe, any other bookmark we have?
Mr. Chair, the only bookmarks we have remaining are DPR, Parks and Rec, and CAHA, which I believe will be addressed by Senator Marsh Taxman.
And the AG.
There should also be HRA and Commission, because they're all
I'm sorry, yes.
Okay.
All right, folks, it's 4:30. And we still have, Senator Will, did you want to say something, ma'am? Sir? No, you're good? Okay, it's 4:30. We'll take a recess, and when we come back, por favor, please, everybody be ready. Not delay. Have your amendments, because we're going to move through this. We have 55 pages to go over, and going back to take care of revenue tax, take care of the AG, take care of Parks and Recs and whatever. There won't be any delay there, okay? We're going to move through this. It should have been easy by now. We should be able to move through it, okay? So for transparency to the people of Guam, we have 55 more pages to go. We must get done by 10 o'clock tonight. And thank you, Senator Tello, for recognizing the staff behind the scenes. They're the one that stays beyond 10 o'clock. They're here before 9, okay? So we will recess. I prefer that we come back by 5:30, but that's only an hour. And for some of you that are traveling, we'll give it an hour and a half, all right? No later than 6, please, my colleagues. We come back on and we start to finish, all right? Thank you. Thank you to the people of Guam for your patience. We'll be back at 6 o'clock. Thank you.